Well, now, thought for the day on Monday, the 13th of June, for Larbert Baptist Church. In the letter in the New Testament to the Hebrews, chapter 11, verse 6, we read these words: "He who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him." Well, now, let me ask you a question. How many people do you know who think about coming to God? That's what the verse says. He who comes to God. How many people? I don't mean how many people do you know who go to church or are on a church committee or are involved in church business. All that's admirable. We're grateful for it. But how many think about coming to God? As a matter of fact, do you actually think about coming to God? Here's a surprising fact. It's this, that coming to God is almost never the first thought of those who actually do come to God, those who diligently seek him. The first thought that they have is not about God, not about coming to God. Nothing whatever to do with God. Their first thought is, how can I get on top of this need? All sorts of needs. There's a sense of emptiness. There's a pervasive conviction that things somehow are not right. There's illness. There's anxiety. There's disappointment. There's failure. There's search for meaning. The list actually is endless. But it's the need that people think about, not God, but the need. How can I meet this need? And it's a search for answers to that leads some people to all sorts of promises that they receive from this one and that one and the other, promising to meet the need. And after a period of frantic acceptance of those promises, gradually dawns on them, it's not really meeting the need at all. And other people have need. And they find that some particular cult will offer them what seems to meet the need. And they begin to believe that their need is being met, and they're channeled in their whole thinking and their manner of life into all sorts of distorting chains. And their need is not really met at all. And some people have tried this thing and that thing and the other thing, and they're all abortive. The ventures don't lead to fulfillment of their need, but only to cynicism and depression and blank despair. And sometimes people with need, after many disappointments, find that the need tightens upon their surprised soul with a focus they actually had never anticipated upon God. The heart, crying for relief, turns at last to God. The words of the Saviour address this very fact. Come unto me, all you who labour and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. They'd come to this one, and that one, to this thing and that thing, to this group and that group, to this organisation and that organisation. None of them had worked. Until at last they hear the words of Christ, come unto me. In the Gospel written by Mark, the second book in the New Testament, there's an account of a woman who was suffering from a discharge of blood. And she'd been suffering from it for 12 years. And she tried this physician and that physician. And she'd spent all the money that she had. And she wasn't any better. She was only worse. Now, she wasn't thinking about God. She was thinking about her need. And she'd been thinking about her need. It had dominated her life for 12 years. She never thought of Jesus Christ. No, not at all. When she first had her illness, the Saviour was about 18 years of age. He was unknown in Nazareth. And it was only after 12 years somebody said to her, have you heard about this rabbi from Nazareth? People are talking about him. He really seems to meet people's need. And I dare say that she made inquiries about this. She heard where this rabbi was. And she would listen and watch and see how he went about meeting people's need. Until at last she realized that there was something different about him. With all the people that she'd gone to during those 12 long, difficult years, she'd had this prescription and that prescription, this medicine, that medicine, and so on. The emphasis was upon the treatment. But somehow, as she looked, watched, examined, she realized it wasn't so much the treatment, it was somehow him. There was something about him. And so she made a plan. And this was it. She said, I'll find where he is. And I get right up to him. Right up to him. And I won't say anything, but I'll just reach out my hand and I'll touch his coat. And you know, I think that will be the cure. I'm not necessarily advocating what looks like, well, mere superstition. What she really was after was contact with him. And of course her method didn't work, because although there were people buzzing around everywhere, the Saviour stopped and said, "Who touched me? Who touched me?" And people said, "Well, everyone is touching you. You're in a crowd." No, said the Saviour. Someone has touched me. And that poor dear woman, she was terrified. And she said, it was me. And the Saviour said, your faith has healed you. And that contact with him brought her relief from that which she had thought about and been harassed and tormented by for 12 long years. And you know, that's really what this verse means. He who comes to God. She came to God. God incarnate. God veiled in our humanity. She came to him. Come unto me, all you who labour and are heavy laden. I will give you rest. He who comes to God. That's what the verse means. And those who come to God realize that it's really not their need that's the absolute priority, but their relationship with God. The need that brought them is relegated to the second place. It's not their need. Whatever their need, they have a greater need, a far greater need. It's this: they need God. And your greatest need, I believe, forgive me being so frank about this, your greatest need is not a cure for arthritis, is not the solving of that deep anxiety. I'm not belittling anything. Your greatest need is God. When St. Augustine wrote his book, The Confessions, a marvellous ancient book that's never, I think, been out of print since it was written hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of years ago. When he wrote his confession, not quite in the first sentence, perhaps in the second, he wrote these words: that our greatest need is God. You have made us, he wrote, for yourself. And our heart is never rested until it finds its rest in you. There's the deep need of the soul. And that's all that those who have this need to know, that God is. He is. It's not a Bachelor of Divinity thesis sort of thing. It's not some precise differentiation between the incommunicable and communicable attributes of God. No, it's nothing like that. Oh, that's very valuable indeed, but it's not that. It's just, he is. He that comes to God must believe that he is, that he's there to meet the need. Ask, and it will be given you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be open to you. Oh, hear the words of Christ. Come unto me.